Hey, it's the Nerdy Sports Fan! It's the week we've all been waiting for. Seriously, it feels like purgatory every summer when we're stuck with baseball. I mean, let's leave that behind us, that awful period. Leave baseball to the people who feel that day drinking is more important than having a day job. And let's get back in to what's really here for the weekend warriors, football. That's right. This Thursday is the opening game of the football season. And man, does it feel good to be back. So a lot happened in the past few weeks. We've had cut down day for all NFL teams, going down from a 90-man roster to a 53-man roster. And we had some trades and a notable retirement. So let's get right into it. So Andrew Luck's retirement, everybody knows about it at this point. Just want to go over a couple of ripple effects for fantasy football owners based off of it. So Houston gets a huge boost from their defense. So does Jacksonville. So does Tennessee. All of these teams now face an Andrew Luck-less Colts team twice a year. Allow that to sink in. You have 2 more games a year that all of those defenses are going to be start-worthy. Matchups matter in the NFL, so Jacksonville's defense goes from like teetering on a top 10 to a top 5 defense. If you haven't drafted yet, if you're drafting tonight, that's really something to look at. Chicago's defense and like the Rams defense, they get almost devalued a little bit because the depth of the top tier defenses increases. So Houston's defense, minus Jadeveon Clowney now, is still serviceable. So I would still expect them to be a defense used in 10 and 12 team leagues, but they're on the bottom end or your backup if you've got a top end defense like Chicago's or the Rams. Offensive players, Leonard Fournette gets a giant boost, and whoever they end up starting at running back for Houston gets a big boost. My money is on David Johnson Jr. at this point, but, it's still kind of murky there, so I'd kind of avoid Houston running backs until you see how things shake out. They've added talent there in taking Carlos Hyde away from Kansas City, and let's not forget that he was in front of David Johnson Jr. in Cleveland's backfield just a year ago. So this is not going to be a straightforward situation. Personally, I'd avoid it like the plague. But if you need to start a Houston running back, they both got better. Wide receivers kind of got dropped down a little bit. And I'll explain this here. So offense staying on the field matters for the opposing team's running game and passing game. In that if the opposing team's offense is doing terrible, your running back is going to get a bigger workload and your wide receiver is going to get a diminished workload. They're not going to have to throw the ball around as much if they're playing from ahead. They're going to want to grind it out late in the game. So, the opposing team's defense is going to be tired, so you have a chance for chunk plays and really big plays late in the game. That's how it works out in real football. So translate that to fantasy football. Now all of a sudden running backs are value up. Wide receivers are at best level, but some of them are valued down when opposing teams in your division get much weaker on offense. So keep that in mind for the fallout from the Andrew Luck retirement. Now, moving on, we already dabbled in a little bit of what Houston's been doing. Let's dive in a little bit more. Houston, they're all in on this season. That much is obvious, okay? They went after one of the top tackles that were available in Laremy Tunsil. They've picked up, as I stated, Carlos Hyde, and they're really trying to address the weak positions, which were running back and offensive line, to level out that offense and keep Watson upright. Hopefully Will Fuller stays upright too. They're two injury-prone star talents on offense. Hopkins is a given at this point. DeAndre is going to put up points. But, the rest of what was there fantasy-wise is really dependent on injuries. Laremy Tunsil being added into the mix helps that quite a bit. So Watson is not going to be the kind of person you expect to get 50-plus sacks against him this season. With a premier blindside blocker now, and some minor addressing of the offensive line that they did in the draft and free agency throughout the offseason, their offensive line is better. Tunsil is a fantastic upgrade. None of the other positions really got a fantastic upgrade. I would assume Houston's still going to be active and probably go after Stefan Wisniewski, who was also released in cutdown day. So you can get great depth for most teams, but for Houston, he might be a starter. And that's still great. Anytime you can upgrade what's in front of a young quarterback like Watson, you're going to do yourselves a big favor. You're investing in the future of the team. So that's good. Fantasy football-wise, Hopkins stays level. You can't really make him much better. He is one of the top 3 receivers in fantasy football on everybody's board. Depending on who you talk to, he might be the best now after all of these trades shake out. So, that's a good benefit there, but you're not going to get a huge jump out of Hopkins. He was already going to be right at the top, wide receiver-wise. Maybe like half a point extra per game you might expect out of him on average, because he was already right at his peak efficiency. But again, keep an eye on the running backs. David Johnson Jr. is the likely starter there, but it's still a murky situation. But whoever does end up getting the bulk of the carries there got a big upgrade. Jacksonville, Leonard Fournette. Keep it in mind. But anyways, what else is going on in the league? Well, as you guys know, I'm a Bills fan. The Bills finally let go of LaShawn McCoy, as most people thought was going to happen in the beginning of the offseason. Everybody pointed to this, okay? Everybody thought, hey, they're going to draft a running back. They're going to do, what they have to with the running back room. Things got a little confusing, only based off of what the GM was saying. And, bringing in Frank Gore and his relationship being very, very close to LaShawn McCoy kind of muddied the waters, but no, just being a pragmatist, everybody kind of saw this coming, and we just kind of got fooled over the past few months on whether or not it was actually going to happen. All right, so LaShawn McCoy's out. That means Devin Singletary gets a huge boost, okay? Anybody who thinks Frank Gore is a legitimate candidate for an even split is insane. The issue that they have there in Buffalo, though, is they also kept T.J. Yeldon. T.J. Yeldon siphoned off a lot of receptions from Leonard Fournette when he was in Jacksonville, and I see much the same happening here. Yeldon might be the perfect third down back, so what's going to happen with Singletary? He's going to get the first couple of downs, and then Yeldon's going to go in for more pass protection and reception work. And then, of course, like goal line situations, they might put Gore out there because he's more of a powerhouse compared to the other two. So fantasy football-wise, even though Singletary gets a big boost, and long-term, he's the guy to own, it's still pretty much a situation to avoid. Okay? If you're starting any Buffalo running back, that's a desperate move. So avoid that. Contract negotiations for Ezekiel Elliott still not moving forward. Jerry Jones has taken a hard line. This man prides himself on contract negotiations. He is a businessman first, an NFL owner second. He'll describe himself as a salesman, not an NFL owner, not a CEO, but a salesman. So this kind of action, contract negotiations, he's going to take a hard line. He's wrapping his entire ego, his identity, in this sort of action. So there's no way in hell Ezekiel Elliott from Cabo is going to have leverage over this man. It just will not happen. They've been dangling the Tony Pollard thing out there all off season to kill whatever leverage that Ezekiel Elliott thought he had. So Elliott might take a hard line. Might end up sitting out at least half the season. I would not expect him to go full Le'Veon here, okay? I think he's going to come back to the team to make sure he has his contract year taken care of, so he can then move on as he's supposed to at the end of his rookie deal. But he might go full Le'Veon. Who knows? His agent's a bit of a wild card here. This is kind of what he does, leveraging positions for more money, getting people to the best payday possible. So, yeah, Zeke, my money is on he misses half the season. He's not likely to go full Le'Veon, but it's still a possibility. So, avoid Zeke in the draft. I get it, okay? He is one of the 2 to 3 best running backs in the league, depending on who you ask, fantasy football-wise. If you don't list him in your top 5, assuming he plays, you're an idiot, okay? Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and who else are we talking about better than him? Saquon Barkley. You can make a case for Todd Gurley, but it depends on how much you know about arthritis. So, yeah, he's really valuable, but that value almost entirely shifts to Tony Pollard right now, at least for the first half of the season, because Zeke's not what drives the car there in Dallas. The offensive line is. So as long as Tony Pollard is 70% of what Zeke is, he's going to be fantastic. Think about what was going on in Denver in the Shanahan era. They traded away Clinton Portis, a Pro Bowler, one of the best running backs in the league, to get Champ Bailey. Now, a lot of people from the outside, not necessarily in the know, thought that was a win for Washington. But it wasn't. Long term, it was a win for Denver, because they got a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame corner in Champ, and they gave away a running back that really only had a few more good seasons left, and their offensive scheme allowed them to keep plugging away with insert your name here kind of running backs, because their scheme and their offensive line is what made the running back position so effective there. That's what's going on in Dallas. They need somebody who's more talented than Zeke's previous backups, but they have that in Tony Pollard. So, yeah, Pollard's value skyrocketed in the last few days when we heard that there's still big barriers in the contract disputes between these two. Let's move on to Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, I guarantee you, will miss the whole season. They are talking about now allowing him to seek a trade. I've been talking about this guy missing the whole season for a few videos now, so if you're not keeping up with that, shame on you, because I got some goods on this, all right? I don't know anybody in the organization. Let me be very clear about that. But there's a certain lack of perspective that I see in coverage of this. All you had to do was see Melvin Gordon's reaction to how Le'Veon Bell was handling his own contract dispute. And you knew that he was fully willing to not play for the Chargers another down until they paid him. All right? Now, he's not looking for the same kind of money Zeke is. He's not looking for the same kind of money that, well, you know what? I don't know these details, okay? So Todd Gurley's contract is the albatross, okay? His contract with $45 million guaranteed, which, by the way, is an absolute waste of money considering that man's knees, is setting the market for people like Gordon and Elliott to really press these teams for funds. And I'm sorry, they're just not worth it, okay? When you look at Melvin Gordon's situation, you see his backups and what they were able to do. With Jones and Eckler, they didn't exactly lose a lot, okay? They have the same production out of the running back position. It's just split between two people. Now, it's not going to be a 50-50 split there. It will be more of a 70-30 split favoring Eckler because he's fantastic as a receiving running back. And he can run. So there's less reason to pull him off the field. And if they go no huddle or hurry up in any way, you're going to want Eckler in that huddle, not Jones. So Eckler becomes a 10 to 13 point running back every single week, standard scoring, because Melvin Gordon's out. Now, Gordon's seeking a trade. Who's going to trade for him? All right? Who's going to trade for him? If Jerry Jones is set on not giving in to Zeke's contract demands and Melvin Gordon has lesser contract demands, that's a target in my mind. Him going to Dallas in place of Zeke, forcing Zeke out, is the kind of play I expect out of an egomaniacal person like Jerry Jones. But there's also a landing spot in San Francisco. San Francisco spent good money on Jerick McKinnon 2 off seasons ago. He has yet to play a season game. He was on injury reserve last year, and he's on injury reserve again this year. All right? That man's ACL might never be strong enough to play an NFL down again. This is 2 years in a row where he's out. So, yeah, they're scrambling. Okay, Matt Breida is their running back again. Now, Breida filled in admirably, but, I mean, seriously, they want to make an actual playoff push there. They're hoping that Garoppolo's healthy. They made some serious investments in their defense. Dee Ford, I mean, you don't make that kind of move unless you think you can do some damage. And they really can, assuming everybody stays healthy. So they might trade for either of these running backs, but Melvin Gordon makes more sense based off of actually being given permission to seek a trade. I wouldn't put Minnesota out of the mix here because Dalvin Cook has not shown to be consistently healthy. The one real bargaining piece that both of these running backs have is they do not have the injury history that a lot of other premier backs have based off of their workload. So Melvin Gordon, Ezekiel Elliott, seeking a trade or going to another team, they can really actually leverage that other team for money still because they haven't had the big injury. They don't have the Todd Gurley-esque arthritic knee issue that everybody saw on the biggest stage when he didn't play in the Super Bowl. Think about that. Now let's talk about Seattle. Seattle's defense got so much better. All right, all their moves as a whole, all their trades and all their free agent moves. They lost Frank Clark, a great pass rusher. I get it. What did they gain? They gained a first-round draft pick. They gained Jadeveon Clowney, who, for my money, is every bit as good as Frank Clark. And in the free agency, they also added in Ziggy Ansah. So their defense is far superior to what it was last season. Okay? Yes, minus Clark, but add Clowney and Ansah, that's a plus on the defensive line. And anytime you can increase your pass rush, you're going to be better overall in the secondary, and just it creates a domino effect. All right? It's like improving the offensive line. So, which they've also done, by the way. They're taking the right steps. This GM that they have in Seattle should be looked at for frickin' larceny with what he did to Houston. GMs in general have been taking advantage of the fact that Houston doesn't actually have a real GM. They have a GM by committee kind of approach, and they've given away multiple first-round draft picks, multiple second-round, maybe just one second-round draft pick. Either way, they've given away a bunch of top draft picks. They have ransomed their future for the now. So we'll see how that plays out in Houston, but that's exactly the opposite of the Patriot way that Bill O'Brien tried to bring down to Houston with him. So I don't really get that tack. I don't. But, you know, if they really think they can make a serious run this year, if they think they're a Super Bowl contender, not just a deep playoff, but a Super Bowl contender, that makes sense. Give up everything to get that ring. I get it. But I just don't see it. The Chargers are still much better than them. The Chiefs are still much better than them. In the NFC, the Rams, the Eagles, these teams are still much better than them. So I don't see the value in trading away as much as they have for the immediate benefit of a Laramie Tunsil. I don't. But hey, you know, it'll be fun to watch this season. It's just not going to be good for them going forward unless they really just do all of their moves via free agency. So that's what's been happening. That's major departures from teams, trades, retirements, how it's going to affect your fantasy lineup. Oh, almost forgot. On that LaShawn McCoy point from my team, he landed in Kansas City. If you have a Kansas City running back on your fantasy team, I'm sorry. Truly. Because the waters just got muddier. All right, Williams, sure, everybody thought he was going to be the starter, but Thompson, the rookie for the 6th-round draft pick that they got, he's going to bite into some carries there. And now with LaShawn McCoy paired back up with Andy Reid, that's a real serious timeshare situation. So I would avoid Kansas City running backs starting them for a few weeks because we don't really know how that's going to shake out. And we could see LaShawn McCoy starting within a few weeks of the season just because of his relationship with Andy Reid and his knowledge of the offense. So, yeah, there's some big moving and shaking that's happened the past few weeks. If you drafted before today, I'm sorry. It's been crazy, and a lot of value changes have happened. I've got teams in my league that drafted 2 weeks ago that now can't depend on a third or more of their starting lineup based off of the trades, retirements, and everything that's just been goofed up in the league with cutdown day here. So this is the lesson for you. Draft the weekend before the season starts, or you're doing it too early, because cutdown day is Armageddon. And if you're not keeping up with the news, you're behind, you're going to lose. Okay? Unless you are on trend and on track watching every single preseason game and you have a great idea of what's going to go on, you need to wait to draft until today. That's it for the opening season Nerdy Sports Fan Weekly. Catch me again next week and hit up the rest of my videos. I'm breaking down every individual game, the whole season. Keep it tuned here every single week. Punch that subscribe button so you can get info like this all season long. You will dominate your league, I guarantee it.